Let's have a moment of silent worship. Good morning and welcome to the anti-awareness and anti-racism awareness group forum. Most of you here have been to our meetings, so we're preaching to the choir.
No surprise.
No surprise, right? As you know, we got started about 5 years ago working with Stephanie Hawley, who helped us open our eyes to white privilege. And for a couple of years after that, there were about 4 of us who continued to explore white privilege. We found it very difficult, I think partly because it's very hard to describe something that you can't see. But we struggled away with it. And then a couple of years ago, we began to feel the need to learn more about the history of racism in this country and African-American history. We did a good bit of reading. And what we'd like to do this morning is Steve will sort of talk us through a bit of that economic history, and then just to remind us of the waters that we swim in. And then we have a series of queries that we would like to consider. There are too many of them for all of us to consider in the full group, so we thought it would be good to break into small groups of 3 people or so. And we have the queries. Can you put them on the screen? Yeah, for people who are on Zoom. And then in the small groups, you can choose the query that you would like to speak to. And we'll do as many small groups as we can, of maybe 5 minutes each. And then toward the end of the hour, we'll come back together to share any thoughts we would like to share. So, Steve?
Oh, okay. I hope most of you were able to take the time to read the very short versions of the presentations and materials that Howard and I did over the past year or so. I can't remember exactly when, but there's only a few main points that I want to remind us of. And the first was based on Howard's wonderful analysis of the book Invention of the White Race by Theodore Allen. And that is that race was not something that people back in early colonial times identified as. They identified as Yorkshiremen or Scots or British or Catholic or maybe even Quaker. But they didn't think of themselves as white as a primary identity. They knew there were different colors of people, white, brown, black, etc. They knew about the Moors, they knew about Native Americans, etc. But the idea of race as a primary identifier and categorizer, what had to be invented by the proprietors, the plantation owners, and the powers that be in colonial America. And we should remember that Black chattel slavery existed for 100 years before the colonies in America throughout Latin America, Mexico, South America, and parts of the Caribbean. So slavery was in existence, horrible slavery, especially in the sugar islands. But in the colonies, the people who first got the rights to come here, and the owners, the proprietors we'll call them, because many of them were called that by charter, needed a cheap source of labor. They tried to grow sugar. It didn't do well in the colonies, so they grew tobacco, indigo, and rice in South Carolina as export crops, because they came here not for religious freedom. They came here to get rich, like the Spanish and Portuguese did. And that was their only objective. And they would do whatever they had to. So when they found out that the existing indentured servant arrangements weren't as economical, people were freed after 7 years and set up businesses and did their own thing. When the flow of white settlers from Great Britain who were willing to be indentured servants started to die out, they tried whoever they could get their hands on. They tried some of the native tribes, and that didn't work out very well. And finally, they turned to, the first exposure was kind of by luck. A Portuguese ship landed in the Virginia colony and had 20 slaves and said, here, take them. We'll give them to you cheap. They said, this works. And it worked for a lot of reasons. The models already existed in the Caribbean and South America. Many of the people who were unfortunately enslaved came from parts of Africa where they had immunity to malaria, which was rampant in the southern states. And the models existed for them to be treated as non-Christians. Anybody who was not a Christian was a savage and didn't have humanity in the same way, didn't have protection under laws. So it started to work, and they started to make a lot of money, and it was great. But they needed more. They wanted more, as capitalism seems to always do. We needed more profits, greater profits. There were some little niggles that were bothering them, since so many of the proprietors decided to treat the female slaves as sex objects. There were lots of children being born who were the sons and daughters of the proprietors with slaves. Under English law, they would inherit the status of their fathers. Therefore, they would be free. They couldn't tolerate that. That was not a good idea. That would be a way for lots of slaves to become free. So they deliberately changed English law in a significant way and said, your status comes from the mother. This was a major, major change. And they made many other changes, by the way, but that's the most important one for us to keep in mind. But they made many other changes to English law to cement their control, complete control over the labor force, which they wanted. The other thing that's important, why they may have felt they had to do this, is because they had, again, based on religious doctrine at the time, people who were not Christians were savages. We don't have to worry much about them. They don't have souls. They're not saved. Well, guess what happened with some of these freed children of proprietors and slaves? They became Christians. Uh-oh. That blows a hole in our total control, doesn't it? We have to find some other way to exercise total control and prevent them from having rights. Aha! They're black, we're white. And that's where this whole book emphasizes the creation of the white race was based on the economic necessity to maintain control over this black labor force, which labored basically for free. Howard, is there anything you want to add? I want to keep this very short because I'd really rather go to the queries. I'm trying to summarize the key points.
Just a quick thing I want to add. That was great, Steve. A couple of things there. When the first black slaves arrived, they were sold as off of the Portuguese, or maybe it was a Dutch ship, I can't remember, as slaves. However, there was no legal framework for slavery under English law, and there were already these indentured servants in Virginia. So they were actually treated as indentured for several generations. And one of the things that happened was the elites got very, very concerned because the indentured Europeans and Africans were starting to band together. And in 1676, almost completely destroyed the colony of Virginia in a rebellion. And after that is when you really start seeing all of the formal, the first recognition of whiteness in a document is in 1691. Okay, many, many years after, because they realized they needed to start separating these people. And they actually started, they had laws that made it so you had to propagandize to white people what these laws were and what the separation was supposed to be now, with you know, and decide what the concept of whiteness meant. They actually would read it out loud in the churches, in the courthouses, you know, wherever people gathered. But it was very, just to underline Steve's point, it was a very deliberate construct of the people who controlled things.
Thank you, Howard. Absolutely. I totally forgot. That's a critical point that continues to this day. The doctrine of whiteness prevents the white working class and persons of color who are working class from getting together and confronting and changing the power structure. And that was a very critical element. And as Howard said, there was this very strong rebellion where blacks and whites got together, and maybe even a few Native Americans, to overturn the power structure of Virginia. And obviously that could not be tolerated. So the other very brief thing I want to bring to refresh ourselves on is the economic contributions and the economic structure of our country and how dependent it is on the fruits of black chattel slavery. By 1790, when the first census took place in the United States, 20% of all residents were black. And they were in all 13 colonies. They were in every city. They were blacksmiths, they were carpenters, they were printers, they were on plantations. They ran the factories that were necessary to keep everything going. So they were skilled as well as unskilled labor. In states like Georgia, they were a majority of the population. There were far more black residents in the 1790 census in Georgia than there were white. So they were a major part of the economy just by their numbers, number one. Number two, in the early 1800s, when the cotton gin was invented and cotton became a very profitable crop, it was so profitable that there are ledgers from plantation owners in places like Alabama and Mississippi and even Louisiana, detailed ledgers that show they were earning 20% profit per year in the 1810s, 20s, and 30s. It was a boom that was so amazingly attractive that it attracted huge amounts of capital from Holland and Great Britain. Many Quaker banks and Quaker people participated in providing this capital. So the capital flowed in so that the plantation owners could buy land, tear down all the trees, buy 100 slaves from people in Virginia and North Carolina, put them to work, and have 20% profits for many years. So that enriched the South enormously. What we usually don't think about at all is that it enriched and established Wall Street and New York City as the financial capital of the United States. Because the investors from Great Britain and Holland didn't want to be involved in the nitty-gritty. They said, here's 10,000 pounds. I want 5% return. And they found brokers and bankers and investment people in Manhattan who were willing to write bonds, write various other kinds of instruments to loan to the plantation owners, so they had the capital to do what they needed to do. This established capital markets and international capital markets that later helped build the railroads and mills in the North. the profit that Wall Street people made on the millions of pounds of investments that came from Great Britain and Holland was used to prime the pumps for industrialization. We would not have the kind of capitalism that we have with international flows of capital being able to be quickly amassed for whatever new product, whether it's a railroad or a mill or whatever, if we didn't have this experience with the cotton boom from 1810 to the 1830s. So there's much more. By the way, I just want to mention that the full presentations that Howard made and that I presented are on the website. It's, BostonQuakers.org, groups, anti-racism awareness, and you'll find a list of documents, you'll find sources for you to read on your own, and many other materials there. So if you, for whatever reason, want to dig deeper, there's plenty of that information there. And, are there any other points? The only other point I wanted to make, and I forgot to do this, is that our founders, as you know, were very wealthy, many of them planters and plantation owners, and even the folks from Boston and Pennsylvania, New York were very wealthy. There were very few commoners among them. And in order to work out the great compromises that they did come up with the Constitution, they embedded slavery without ever saying the word slavery in several places in the Constitution. And I just want to get to those. Okay, as you know, slaves were both property and persons for different reasons. They were counted as property as the 3/5 rule. As persons as the 3/5 rule, and property throughout. There's a clause in here that says, no person held to service or labor in one state. So that's how they got around saying slavery. Held to service. That would include indentured servants also. No persons held to service in one state under the laws thereof, escaping into another, shall in consequence of any law or regulation therein be discharged from service or labor, but shall be delivered up on claim of the party to whom such service or labor may be due. In other words, long before there was the Fugitive Slave Act, this was embedded in the Constitution, that persons who are held to service in one state can't be freed by going to another state under their laws. And they did that because at the time, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Hampshire had already outlawed slavery. And this caused uproar in some of those states against ratifying the Constitution, because this clause limited individual states' rights and forced those states to honor laws from other states. So I guess just to summarize, to stop at this point, in the top of the agenda, we talk about what is structural racism. I can't even read everything without my glasses anymore. A pervasive system of legal, religious, educational, and cultural practices that create and maintain white supremacy in the U.S. while diminishing the rights and status of Black persons and other persons of color. Embedded in our Constitution, embedded in the laws of the various states, embedded in our religious institutions until very recently. Most of the religious institutions, including Quakers, bought into the idea of white supremacy and believed it very heartily throughout the Revolutionary period and up until the era of widespread abolitionist thought. So I'm done. Sorry.
Thank you, Steve. So at this point, we would like to move into breakout rooms. And Joanna is prepared to, Joanna, do you just arrange the breakout rooms, or do people choose?
You're on mute. You're on mute.
You're on mute.
First.
Thank you. Sorry, I hadn't noticed that. Well, okay, I'm looking at the people who are not here in the meeting house, and I see Tobin, I see James, I see Terry, I see Howard and Galia and myself. Terry, I have to ask you, are you and Liz both going to participate in the sharing of thoughts and feelings on the queries?
Liz is not going to be at the forum.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
well,
and so my attention is sort of divided between a number of things right now, so I will defer.
And Joanna?
Okay, Terry, was that a no, thank you
It
on?
was a no, thank you, yes.
Okay, okay. Well,
There is also Ruth, Siobhan, Erica, and Glenna.
Right.
where? I don't see them.
Well, just because you don't see them, they're here. Look under participants.
Ah, there they are. Sure enough. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Hi, Siobhan. I see Ruth. I see Erica. I see Glenna. Good. Okay. So what I'm going to do is do this assign automatically, and I'm going to have it be 3 people in a breakout room. So let's see. The only thing is Howard and Gilia are probably going to show up as 1 in terms of, okay, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Who's there peeking? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That would work out perfectly if it works. So this is
And
my thinking.
The house will be 1, and there's 3 of them there. The Friends Meeting house is 1.
There are 4 people there. There's Mitch.
There are 5 people here.
Okay, well then you can figure it out, a group
Yeah,
of 2
we'll
and a group
figure
of
it
3.
Right.
Okay, so dear friends online, my plan here is to have us all show up in a moment in breakout rooms. And the breakout rooms are so that we can have more time to talk and listen, more time to think out loud and share our responses to these queries. We haven't seen or heard the queries yet, and it is, hold on, it is 22, 23 after 10. Is that right? Or is it after 9? After 10. Sorry, time
Yeah.
change.
Steve is going to share them on the screen.
Yeah, but they won't show up in the breakout rooms.
Oh, they won't. Oh,
Okay, maybe you could put them in the chat also. But I'm going to read them. And my thinking is we have time for 2 sets of 10 minutes each. And my thinking is the first set would be the individual Quakers queries, and then the second set would be the Quakers as a Quaker meeting set. Okay?
okay.
And so if you're in a group with 3 people, that would be like 3 minutes each. If you're in a group with 2 people, that'd be 5 minutes each. And your job is to take turns, time yourself so that you're sharing the time fairly, and the listener is mainly listening other than asking questions if the speaker runs out of things to say. Any questions on that? Okay, so I'm going to read the queries for the first group, and then they'll show up on the screen in some way or another. What must we as individual Quakers do? What changes in your daily life could you make that would reduce white supremacy? Do you speak up when you are present during microaggressions? We all have ingrained racist attitudes. Are you honest with yourself and aware of these attitudes and behaviors? Do you listen to people of color and avoid speaking for them? What is hard for you to hear? What are you doing to break the structures of separation and get to know people of color personally? Okay, so let's see what we can do here. Assign automatically, create 1, 2, I should make 3 breakout rooms here, and it should work. Fingers crossed. Okay, let's see if it works, all right? See you on the other side. Howard and Gilia are going to be in one room, so I'm going to put another person into a room to make everybody have 3. Okay.
Joanna, are
3.
you going to put the queries up on the chat?
I cannot. I don't have the facility to do that. I'm sorry. Well, I take that back. I probably could.
I
if
could
it's
share the
typing.
screen.
So
I could
I'll
share
go-
the screen, but I don't know if it'll show up in the breakout rooms.
okay, I will go last, and I will type those queries in.
Here,
Okay?
I'll get them.
Oh, you're
get
going
it.
to type them in?
Yeah, I can
You're
do
going to
that.
type them in? Okay, hold on just a minute. Sorry, everybody. Quickly paste
Joanna,
them
I
in.
got them.
Got them? I don't see myself in any breakout room, so I'm just going to join one. Okay. See you soon. Enjoy listening and talking.
Okay, do we all want to just meet together?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well,
Hello, I see Terry. I see the name Glenna. Glenna, are you there behind your name? I see Howard and Galia.
Joanna, I can move people around if you need.
Well,
Looks like Howard and Galia are in one by themselves. Shall I move them over to room 2, which only really has 2 people, okay?
okay. Or you could move them to room 1.
Well, no, they're in room 1.
Okay, okay, so I'm not in
Hold
anything.
on.
Okay,
Here, this makes sense. So,
okay.
whoops. Did that work? Oh, there they go. Okay. Okay, so in room 2 is Erica, Howard, and James. And in room 3 is Ruth and Siobhan and Tobin.
And Glenna
Room
says
1
not
is
joined.
basically, it's got Glenna, but she's not joined.
What does that
and
mean, not joined?
that means that she didn't go into a breakout room. I
Because-
think. Wait a minute, not joined. Yeah. She
So
chose
she's
not to. It means that she chose not to go into a breakout room.
Okay, okay. Hi, Terry.
Hi.
So this morning, if you can listen to me for a minute, I went to get myself a smoothie after swimming in Barton Springs. The Juice Land people, if you sign up with them, give you a discount on your birthday. My birthday's on Wednesday. So I got myself a smoothie, and there was an interracial couple also getting smoothies, and they had a lovely little boy. And so I went out and I sat waiting. We were all waiting for our smoothies. And I just started a conversation with this young woman who, I don't know, she might have been max 30 at the most. The kid was turning 3 soon. And she was American. The father was from some European country. And I just said, my name is, and I'm celebrating my birthday by getting a smoothie. And anyway, the upshot of the whole intro was that they ended up asking me to take a photo, and I thought they wanted me to take a photo of them as a family. I said, no, we want to take a photo of all of us, all 4 of us together. So they took a selfie with all 4 of us, and I gave her my name, address, and phone number because they live in Houston. And she said she would call me when they were coming to Austin again. And it was just so nice to meet these young people with this little person. I'm saying that in response to what must we, which I think is what might we as individual Quakers do. And I guess my answer is reach out. Reach out. Ah, here's Prakash and Lulu, not joined. Shall we put them into a room? Hello, hello.
Why don't we have them with you? Because as I
Okay.
said, I'm kind of distracted
Okay.
right now, and I'm not.
Okay, so we'll have another room.
I don't think you need to. You can just leave them in the main
Oh, okay,
thing.
okay. So, hello. Hi. I'm Joanna, and you're muted for one thing.
Are you talking to me or
Yes,
somebody?
yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm gonna put the queries in the
I
chat
see.
again.
I see the words Prakash and Lulu. I know
Oh,
you're
yeah. So
Lulu.
Lulu's in the other room. I'm Prakash.
Okay, Prakash. So you've arrived in the middle of a sharing time. We have something we call queries. I can't see you. There you are over there. Okay. You
Okay.
just jumped on my screen.
I didn't
Um,
know you guys were remote or meeting at the
Both,
house today.
both. We're doing both.
Okay.
Um, and so right now it's a sharing time. And if you look at the chat, you will probably see queries being questions that don't have, a specific answer. They're just for us to respond to out of our own experience. And the first set of queries is, what must we as individual Quakers do, or what might we as individual Quakers do? This is a forum about anti-racism awareness.
Oh, yeah.
And so I have just,
I see them now. I see the questions.
okay. And
Yeah.
if you are comfortable doing this, then you can just look at the questions and respond to whichever one or ones you want to. And I will be quiet because I've just shared with
I
Terry.
can respond to a lot of this because I'm obviously not white, and I've lived here pretty much my entire life for more than 50 years. So I've been on the receiving end of many of these things, but I've also experienced good things. I mean, I can answer all of this from my experience. I don't know if that's the right answer. I don't know if there's such a thing as a right answer, but I think that we should talk about what white supremacy is. I mean, I think you guys have talked about that quite a bit. The main resistance I get is, well, my answer, when I talk to white people at work or college or whatever it is, they say, well, my ancestors were not, they were working class, they were indentured servants from Ireland and so on and so forth. What do I have to do with supremacy? That's, I'm not part of the Rothschild family. I'm not part of the Rockefeller family. I'm not part of the Carnegie family. So what do I have to do with supremacy? So that's a lot. Those are a lot of the comments I get, or I've gotten over the last many decades of living here. So, and I don't know, yeah, I mean, those are all valid points, but the question is, did people of European origin who have settled here and elsewhere, did they benefit from the system, that the Carnegies, that the people who had the money and the guns, did they benefit from those systems? And then you get some interesting answers, and the answers are usually, yeah, they probably did benefit from those, so, my ancestors were colonized by Britain. My sisters are from India, so you have to remember too that a lot of supremacists, they use local people. I mean, it's colonization 101. They use local elites, so people in India who had land and power. They use them to help colonize or help promote their interests. So I think that needs to be acknowledged too when we talk about a lot of this stuff. You speak out when you are present during microaggressions. That's really interesting because when I was a kid, so I grew up in the 70s and 80s in Pennsylvania. And I grew up mainly in a white, I started off in a black community near Temple University. And I don't remember too much of that, but my brothers do. They remember, they were older than me. Then we moved to the suburb in a place called Southampton in Bucks County. And it was really interesting because the people who I would ride bikes with or who I thought were my friends, when we confronted a group of older kids or kids the same age as me who would make comments about me being Indian, or they used to say that I was dirty because I had brown skin, and that I was intellectually inferior because my people were poor. Indian people are poor. They're poor because they're stupid. So when comments like that were made, the people who I thought were my friends never stuck up for me. Never stuck up for me. And that includes black people too. I mean, I hate to say, black people never stuck up for me. White people never stuck up for me. The only people that stuck up for me were my brothers. So that created a lot of anger and hatred, frankly, in my psyche. So it took me a long time to work through all of that. So yeah, so if people's jobs and their livelihood or their reputation are at stake, they usually don't speak up. But a lot of that has changed. So that's one thing I need to say is, you know, like I said, I lived here pretty much all my life, 50 years or more actually. And a lot of things have gotten better. Like my son, I don't think he's experienced nearly as much bigotry or that I did growing up. So that's definitely good. So the country has gotten a lot more civilized. I think overall there are still a lot of problems, but when there's a lot of risk, like when your livelihood's at stake or your reputation at stake, I find that people don't really speak up. I mean, the aggressions at work and things are a lot less or a lot more subtle, but I think the awareness has gone up. So. Anyway, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, so I'll stop right there. That's...
Thank you very much for sharing all that, Prakash.
Sure.
And we're on a little schedule, and I don't exactly know where we are in terms of the time. Momentito, hold on, please. Okay, I think that the time actually is just about up. So I should do some share of sharing. And I mean, it's not fair to you if I don't share at all. I'm clearly white. I'm half Jewish, and I wasn't raised Jewish at all. So what can I say? My parents worked diligently to avoid any put downs of any groups of people, and to promote in our family that all people were of worth. So I didn't know, as a kid, I didn't know any, bad words about different groups of people. And my father taught at a university in New York, and he would invite foreign students home, and then, we would just all have conversations. They would have grown-up conversations, and I would pass around juice or alcohol, depending on what people wanted to drink, and sit and talk to people from Sweden or from Pakistan or from India or wherever they were from. There were people from Yugoslavia, I remember. What is hard for me to hear? It is hard for me to hear when somebody is mad at me, when a person of color is mad at me for something and says, it's like, this always happens with white people, you white people, and then it's like, I've got the whole burden of everything bad that's ever happened to that person of color by or with any white person. And it's all being thrown at me, and it's all my fault. And I'm just lumped in with all the badness. It's hard for me to hear that, it's really hard for me to hear that. And it's hard for me not to, react. What do you mean? But the reality is, I look like any other white person, right? I'm a white person, so why not lump me in with all the rest of them? So I'm going to press this button that says close all rooms because we have actually gone over the allotted time, and see if people would like to have another go round with this next set of queries, which is about what we as Quaker meeting could or should be doing, okay? And that means, Prakash, that you will probably be paired with somebody else, okay? Hello, welcome back. I hope that was useful, enjoyable, enlightening, all that jazz. And we have not another 10 minutes really, but maybe 8 minutes. And we could do the Quaker meeting set of queries. And so that means if you've got, 3 people, maybe 2.5 minutes each, you just need to time yourselves to make sure everybody gets a turn, okay? Glenna is not participating, so, and Prakash is here now, which is great. So I'm gonna, with Terry's help, see if we can do this again. And so we should recreate, right? And I'm going to do assign manually. And
It's still showing a list of people in rooms. Did you want to just move them around or?
I'm doing my best to move them around, yes.
Oh, okay.
And then room 3 would be everybody else, which would be, okay. Terry, can you put me in room 3?
Okay, let's see. I close the window, of course. Okay.
Because I don't find myself to put myself in room 3.
Well,
which
that's
is weird.
interesting.
Okay. Well,
I don't see you either.
okay. Howard and Galia, I'm going to try and join your room. Okay. Everybody else, it's 11:15. If you want to do 9 minutes, that would be 3 minutes each. And the queries for what must we as a Quaker meeting be doing are advocate for reparations, ? Review our investments. Are we investing in Black-owned businesses? Should we increase our interactions with other faith communities in our neighborhood? Can we do more to engage with the communities of color in East Austin? And why do we keep $700,000? Should we create a bail fund and/or a college fund, or anything else that you yourself feel or think we as a Quaker meeting might be doing? Please join your rooms.
Welcome back, friends. I hope your discussions were fruitful. We are now at the time when we should be preparing for worship. So let us go into silent worship for just a moment.